Okay, so you've tuned in, and we're ready to unpack some pretty interesting information. You shared this deep dive into the global plumbing fitting market.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area.
Our goal today is really to explore this, seemingly everyday industry, pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising trends, and figure out what it all means.
And it's definitely a market with some impressive numbers. For 2025, the global value is pegged at USD 72.54 billion.
72 billion, wow.
But what really jumps out is the growth projection. We're looking at a leap to USD 108.82 billion by 2033.
Okay, so over 100 billion.
Exactly. And that translates to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 5.20%. That's, well, pretty significant sustained expansion. It tells you there are some strong global forces at work here.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into those forces then. The report mentions a few big drivers. First off, this rapid growth of cities and smart city projects.
Right. It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, these modern urban places, they need incredibly complex, efficient plumbing, don't they?
Absolutely. And then there's just the straightforward increase in building more homes, more offices, more factories. They all need plumbing fittings.
Simple as that.
Well, almost. There's another layer, too, this growing global focus on saving water, and developing more sustainable plumbing tech.
Oh, right. So it's not just more building, it's building smarter, more efficiently.
Precisely. That's becoming a huge factor.
Okay, so with that kind of overview, let's get a feel for where this is all happening, geographically. The report gives us a snapshot for 2025, right?
It does. North America right now holds the largest share. We're talking over 40%, which translates to about USD 20.31 billion.
40%, okay. That's substantial.
It is. But their projected growth, looking out to 2033, is a bit more measured. A CAG of about 3.7%.
Which I suppose kind of makes sense for a region with, well, pretty established infrastructure already.
Exactly. Then you've got Europe. They're holding over 30% of the market, valued at USD 17.41 billion.
Okay, number two globally.
And Europe's looking at steady growth, too, a CAGR around 4.1%. But here's where the story gets really interesting in terms of acceleration.
Oh, yeah.
The Asia-Pacific region, APAC, currently around 23% share, about USD 28.29 billion for 2025.
Okay, so smaller share than Europe currently.
But their projected CGR is a remarkable 6.2%. That's the fastest growth we see anywhere in this report.
Wow, 6.2%. So even though they're not the biggest market today, APAC is clearly like on a super fast track.
Right.
What's driving that kind of expansion?
Well, a huge part is just the sheer scale of urbanization happening. Think about countries like China and India.
Right, massive development.
Plus huge government investments in infrastructure.
Yeah.
That creates this enormous demand for new plumbing. It really shifts the focus, potentially.
Yeah, you start thinking about global supply chains, manufacturing. That kind of growth has big implications.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just to round out the picture globally, South America.
South America holds just over 5% of the market. That's about USD 2.18 billion, with a pretty strong KGR of 5.6%.
Okay, solid growth there too. Middle East.
The Middle East is around 2%, USD 2.76 billion, but also growing fast, 5.9% CAGR.
Interesting. And Africa.
Africa holds about 1% right now, USD 1.60 billion, and their CAGR is projected at 5.5%.
So quite a range then, not just in the current market size, but really in the pace of future growth across these regions.
Exactly. You see these diverse growth rates reflecting very different stages of, economic development and infrastructure investment.
Okay.
Each region has its own story.
Okay, now the report also breaks things down by the type of fitting. Let's talk components. Pipes versus, say, joint fittings.
Right. So pipes are likely to stay dominant in terms of overall market share. They're the basic network.
The main arteries, yeah.
And the report specifically mentions housing booms, places like India, China, the U.S., Brazil, plus government housing programs as key drivers for just needing more pipes.
But here's a twist I saw. While pipes are the biggest chunk, it's the joint fittings that are the fastest growing segment. Why is that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems to tie back to that efficiency point we mentioned earlier. There's this increasing focus on preventing leaks, conserving water.
Ah, the connections need to be better.
Exactly. Even the best pipe is no good if the joint leaks. So there's rising demand for advanced leak-proof fittings, things like compression fittings, push-to-connect options. They're more reliable, need less maintenance.
And save water.
Directly. So while pipe demand is driven by sheer volume, the growth in joint fittings is more about, reliability and sustainability needs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to materials then. Metal versus polymeric or plastic-based fittings. What's the deal there?
So currently, metal fittings, brass, stainless steel, copper, they hold the biggest share. And that's mostly down to their reputation for durability, strength.
They last longer, basically.
Generally, yes, they handle high pressure temperature changes well, tried and true.
But the report says polymeric fittings are expanding fast. What's the attraction?
Cost effectiveness, that's the big one. Polymeric fittings, things made from PPSU or PVDS, they're usually cheaper to make and install.
Okay, so upfront cost saving.
Exactly. Which makes them really appealing for big projects, especially maybe in developing regions where budgets are tighter. It's that classic trade-off, isn't it?
Durability versus cost.
Yeah. You might go for metal for longevity in one spot, but the cost saving of polymeric is a huge pull elsewhere.
Right. Okay, moving on to how these fittings get used. Applications.
Hmm.
Residential, commercial, industrial. Where's the biggest demand right now?
Residential. That sector currently takes the largest slice of the pie.
Makes sense, just the sheer number of homes.
Exactly. Plus, the constant cycle of renovations, kitchens, bathrooms, and homeowners are getting more conscious about water use too, wanting those efficient fixtures.
Okay, so residential is biggest. Which application is growing fastest?
That would be the industrial sector.
Industrial. Okay, why is that?
Well, if you connect it to broader economic trends, it clicks. Manufacturing, processing industries expanding globally. They need robust plumbing. High-pressure, corrosion-resistant stuff.
Ah, for factories and plants.
Right. The report points to growth in industrial zones, China, India, the U.S., Germany. And government initiatives like the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act or China's push for industrial expansion, they pour money into infrastructure.
Which includes lots of specialized plumbing.
Naturally. So those big economic and political moves directly fuel demand in this specific market.
It's fascinating how it all connects. Okay, finally, how do these things get to the people who need them? Distribution channels, offline versus online.
Right now, offline channels dominate. Traditional hardware stores, plumbing supply showrooms.
The places you can physically see and touch the product.
Exactly. These are often technical products. Plumbers, contractors, engineers, they often want to inspect them, check specs, maybe get some expert advice right there.
Makes sense. But everything's shifting online these days. Is that happening here too?
Oh, absolutely. Online is the fastest growing channel.
Yeah.
You've got the major online retailers, plus specialized e-commerce platforms just for this industry.
Right.
And what's also interesting is the rise of direct-to-customer sales. Manufacturers setting up their own online shops.
Cutting out the middleman?
In some cases, yeah. It offers convenience, huge selection, and it's really efficient for handling bulk orders, which appeals to construction firms and industrial buyers.
So the physical store is still king for now, but online is catching up fast. Okay, let's quickly recap the main growth drivers we touched on.
Sure. The big three are really rapid urbanization and infrastructure development that comes with it, the overall global rise in construction and real estate, and that increasing demand for water-efficient, sustainable solutions.
Got it. And the roadblocks. Any major restraints holding the market back?
The report highlights two main things. Fluctuating raw material prices, metals, polymers, their costs can swing quite a bit, impacting the final price.
Yeah, supply chain issues we've all heard about.
Exactly. And the other is regulations. Increasingly strict, complex compliance rules that manufacturers have to deal with in different parts of the world.
So cost volatility and red tape.
Yeah.
Those are the main headwinds. Looking ahead then, what are the key trends shaping the future of this market?
Well, one clear trend is the rising demand for smart plumbing systems.
Smart plumbing, like what?
Think IoT-enabled devices, leak detection sensors, automated water management, stuff that integrates plumbing into smart home or smart building systems.
Okay, tech is coming to pipes and faucets.
It is. And the other big trend is the expansion in renovation and retrofitting. As buildings and infrastructure age, there's just a massive need to replace old plumbing with modern, more efficient systems.
Right, upgrading the existing stock. Okay, let's zoom back in on some specific regions. We got the overview, but what are the unique factors driving growth? North America first.
Okay, North America, substantial market, as we said. The U.S. alone, around USD $16 billion in 2025, growing at 3.5% CAGR. Canada, about $2.4 billion, 4.5% CAGR. Mexico, $1.8 billion, 4.2% CAGR.
And what's pushing that growth?
It's steady construction, both residential and commercial, lots of home renovations. And importantly, regulations like the EPA's WaterSense program or LEED building standards. They really encourage water-efficient products.
So policy plays a role there. What about Europe?
Europe's overall growth, that 4.1% CAGR, is heavily influenced by key countries. Germany, about 3.45 billion, 4.3% CAGR. France, 1.6 billion, 3.3%. The UK, almost 3 billion, growing at nearly 5% CAGR. Spain, 1.4 billion, 3.2% CAGR.
And the drivers there?
Government investments in affordable housing, commercial real estate, that's a big factor. Plus, a post-pandemic surge in home renovations, and you have strict building codes in places like Germany pushing efficiency.
Okay. Now let's hit that fastest growing region again, Asia Pacific.
Right, the numbers here are really dramatic. China is huge, nearly USD 12 billion market, 5.7% CAGR, driven by those smart city projects, high-rise construction.
Then India.
India stands out with the highest growth rate mentioned, a massive 8.1% CAGR. Market size around 2.8 billion. It's fueled by huge investment in real estate and infrastructure.
8.1%. Wow.
Yeah. And then you also have the growth of manufacturing hubs, China, again, Vietnam, Thailand. Other key markets are Japan, around 3.9 billion, 4.7% CAGR, and South Korea, 3.4 billion, 5.3% CAGR. This APAC boom is really reshaping the global picture.
Definitely. Okay, shifting continent, South America.
South America's growth, 5.6% overall CAGR, is largely tied to urbanization and government housing programs. Brazil is key here, almost a billion-dollar market, 6.2% CAGR.
And elsewhere.
Argentina is growing even faster, 6.5% CAGR on a smaller base, driven by water system modernization and sustainability efforts. Chile and Peru are also focused on infrastructure upgrades.
Got it. And the Middle East.
Middle East growing at 5.9% overall. You see big infrastructure projects like in Qatar, 5.4% CAGR. Government-backed housing and hospitality expansion, especially in Turkey, 6.5% CAGR. And the rise of smart homes region-wide.
Any key countries there?
Saudi Arabia is significant, nearly $1 billion market, 6.2% CAGR. And the UAE, over $500 million, growing at 6.4%.
Okay. And finally, Africa.
Africa, smallest share but steady progress, 5.5% CAGR overall. Growth there is often linked to government initiatives trying to improve sanitation and water supply.
And materials play a role.
Yes, the adoption of those more cost-effective polymer-based materials is helping drive uptake. Key markets to watch are Nigeria, 5.7% CAGR, and South Africa, 6.4% CAGR.
It's really incredible hearing how all these different regional factors, government policy, urbanization, construction trends, sustainability, weave together to shape this market so differently around the world.
Absolutely. And the report even gives a little flavor of the competition, the innovation happening.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, just as one example, it mentions Charlotte Pipe introducing something called Edge HP Iron back in February 2021.
Okay.
It was a new cast iron system specifically designed for tougher drain, waste, and vent applications. It just illustrates that companies are constantly developing specialized solutions.
Right. Innovation is ongoing even in established areas. So wrapping this all up, it seems pretty clear the global plumbing fitting market is, well, not just large, but it's got some serious momentum for growth ahead.
Definitely. Fueled by all these interconnected global trends we've discussed. And it's crucial to remember those big regional differences and the specific dynamics within each segment, materials, applications, components.
Yeah, this deep dive into what might seem like, a pretty mundane topic actually tells us a lot about global development, sustainability pushes, even tech progress.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Given all these factors swirling around urbanization, sustainability needs, tech advances, new materials, what kind of unexpected innovations or shifts might we see in plumbing fittings down the road? And how could those changes actually impact our daily lives or the buildings around us?
That's a great question to ponder.
It really shows this market is way more complex and connected to the wider world than you might think at first glance.